A Safe Streets worker pleads guilty to drug charges committed while working. We press the mayor for answers on if other employees have committed crimes on the job. A woman found murdered on a popular trail in Harford County. Why one law enforcement expert says police are keeping details from the public. And we're following breaking news. The White House negotiating with Iran to release 5 American prisoners. Details behind the deal.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
Well, tonight, Fox 45 News continues to push for more transparency from Baltimore's Safe Streets program. Despite Mayor Scott and his administration keeping Safe Streets workers' names private, a Fox 45 investigation has uncovered another one. Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala. Thank you for staying with us. Fox 45 News has learned that employee has pleaded guilty to federal drug charges. Mackenzie Frost has been investigating Safe Streets for almost 2 years. She has the very latest.
Vernon Harper used to live in Pikesville and in 2022 pleaded guilty to federal drug charges connected to drug dealing in the same Safe Streets location he was supposed to be working in. This is another example of Safe Streets workers getting involved in criminal activity while the city remains silent. The Brooklyn Safe Streets site is in a community hit by Baltimore's violence. According to Baltimore police data, 7 homicides in 39 shootings in Brooklyn alone so far this year, including the Brooklyn Homes mass shooting over the 4th of July holiday weekend. The Safe Streets location is supposed to use violence interrupters who are trusted in the community, trusted to help interrupt violence, prevent more bloodshed. In this indictment, federal prosecutors outline how a violence interrupter, Vernon Harper, was trying to sell drugs. According to prosecutor, Harper, also known as Diddy, traveled from his Pikesville home to Brooklyn, where Harper worked for Safe Streets, in order to sell narcotics to customers. In October 2022, Harper signed a plea agreement, pleading guilty to possession with intent to distribute fentanyl and cocaine. Fox 45 News questioning Mayor Brandon Scott if he knows of any Safe Streets workers committing crimes.
Listen, Mackenzie, we know that we have Safe Streets is a program where we hire folks who used to be in the illegal world and illegal life to go out after they corrected their life and corrected the way to stop other people from doing it.
But currently, any Safe Streets workers?
As I said, former Safe Streets workers were formerly involved in that life, and just like any other employee in any other industry, if we find out that folks are in that, whether they're a Safe Streets worker, whether they're a police officer, whether they're a Rec and Parks worker, we'll address that through law enforcement.
Should the public have any sort of knowledge of when current Safe Streets workers are charged with a crime?
Well, we know that court records in Maryland are public records. The same way.
But the names of the Safe Streets workers aren't.
The same way that we deal with individuals, and we've had it in the past, right? So this isn't anything new. I want the residents to know this. In the past, we've had folks who were working for Safe Streets before my administration still be involved, and those folks were handled criminally, and everyone knew.
But Vernon Harper and his criminal activity only coming to light now, and he's not alone. Ronald Alexander, seen here in a photo from a 2020 federal complaint, wearing a Safe Streets shirt, holding a bag of suspected drugs. He shamefully used his employment with Safe Streets to evade law enforcement and avoid arrest, the U.S. Attorney for Maryland said at the time. Alexander was sentenced in September of 2021 to more than 11 years in federal prison for distributing fentanyl, cocaine, and heroin in the city. Details of his case announced by the feds, not by leaders inside City Hall. And because the city refuses to provide names of Safe Streets workers, it's unclear if any other violence interrupters are involved in any illegal activity now. Harper was released from federal prison just last month. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
And Vernon Harper has an extensive criminal history going back decades. In 1994, he was convicted of second-degree murder and handgun charges. He spent 18 years in prison before being released in 2013. In the years following his release, he has been charged with drug possession, possession of drug paraphernalia, and multiple traffic violations, including driving without a license. Well, that brings us to our question of the day. Do you think Safe Streets needs to be more transparent in its hiring practices? So far, 96% say yes. To make your voice heard, go to foxbaltimore.com/vote. The search for a killer continues in Harford County days after the body of 37-year-old Rachel Morin was found on the Ma and Pa Trail in Bel Air. The man who says his stepdaughter made the discovery claims Morin's body was found in a tunnel drain not far from the trail's William Street entrance. Tonight's Fox 45's crews are back at the trail with a new message from Rachel's family. Rebecca Pryor has the story.
Yeah, last night, Rachel's family taking to the trail to pay their respects. And as they walked along the path, they also left pieces of Rachel along the way.
Beautiful photographs along a well-traveled path, a memorial of memories from the family of Rachel Morin. The family choosing to grieve the loss privately at the place Rachel went missing and her body found. On Facebook, Rachel's sister Rebecca writing, quote, "We as a family walked the entire Ma and Pa Trail together as a family in silent remembrance of Rachel." Along the way, the family posting pictures of Rachel on trees and encouraging the public to lay flowers beside the trail. In another social media post, Rachel's mom thanking the Harford County community for an outpouring of prayers, love, and concern, as well as announcing plans for a celebration of life ceremony and 5K race in Rachel's honor. But as the family mourns and remembers Rachel's life, law enforcement continuing to investigate who took it.
I understand many of you want answers, and we do too.
5 days since Rachel went missing and 4 days since her body was discovered. The Harford County Sheriff's Office not ready to release the names of any suspects or details concerning her death. In a statement to Fox 45, the office writing in part, quote, "People using the trail should remain vigilant. This case remains open, and we will not say whether or not this was a targeted act."
Please know we are holding details close to help ensure a suspect is brought to justice.
Yeah, it's a little bit concerning.
According to former FBI agent and law enforcement expert Tyrone Powers, the longer an investigation lingers, the more difficult it is to make an arrest. However,
I think they're a little further along than they are letting on at this particular point. Part of an investigation involves not only identifying a suspect, but moving that forward and collecting evidence in a way that could lead to a conviction.
Powers adding, once handcuffs are on, any cooperation between the suspect and police is likely off the table.
In the field, we always say don't rush to judgment, no matter how much publicity they're getting, because then you may get the arrest, but you may lose the case.
Rachel's family has also started a GoFundMe to help cover funeral expenses. At last check, that GoFundMe has already raised more than $40,000. Reporting from the Ma and Pa Trail, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
The Harford County Sheriff's Office is asking anyone who was on or near the trail this weekend to send in pictures as they piece together this investigation. Officers say they have already received hundreds of tips. We'll continue to update you on this investigation both on air and online at foxbaltimore.com. Developing now, reports say there are talks to move the Preakness to 4 weeks after the Kentucky Derby. Right now, it is held 2 weeks following the first leg of the Triple Crown. We are called the middle jewel, of course. According to First Racing and Gaming, it will give the horses more time to recover. If this happens, though, that means the Belmont Stakes, which currently runs 5 weeks after the Derby, will fall just a week after Preakness. Seems like they're going to have to move that race as well. No indication now that New York is in talks to adjust their timeline, so we will see.
Fox 45 is following breaking news. The United States has reached a deal with Iran to bring home 5 U.S. citizens in exchange for Iran gaining access to billions of dollars in blocked funds. The 5 Americans have been imprisoned in Iran for more than 8 years. Before the deal was finalized, they were moved out of Iran's notorious Evin prison and placed under house arrest. Under the deal, Iran will gain access to $6 billion in blocked funds that is currently in a restricted bank account in South Korea. White House officials say those funds will be used for trade purposes, and access to the money will be controlled and regulated by the government of Qatar. Now, once the Americans touch down on American soil, the Biden administration is also expected to release several Iranian nationals serving sentences in the United States for violating sanctions on Iran. Mary?
Kai, thank you. Well, new tonight, Maryland State Police rescue a woman after her car plunged down a cliff in West Virginia. Investigators say on Tuesday, a 19-year-old woman was driving near the West Virginia-Maryland border when her car went off the road and rolled 70 feet down a ravine. Rescue teams got her out and put her on a raft. Once they reached a safe spot, she was airlifted to shock trauma in Baltimore. Her condition unclear tonight. Well, Annapolis police tonight warning of a phone fraud scheme. Police say the scam involves suspects identifying themselves as Annapolis police officers, telling victims they owe money for missing court dates. The scammers also threaten criminal prosecution and fines for money. Police say if you believe you've been a victim of this scam, call police or file a report with the Federal Trade Commission. Some new details tonight in the illegal wiretap allegations against Harford County Executive Bob Casserly. Fox 45 has obtained correspondence between county officials, which demanded a speedy probe of any and all emails between County Councilman Aaron Penman and 5 other people, including Harford County Sheriff Jeffrey Gaylor. Councilman Penman confirming to us today that these emails were the evidence of spying he found that prompted his allegations that the county executive illegally monitored his communications.
He overreached his authority. He declared it as a one-time thing. Only one person had, observed the actual emails, and it was a snapshot. And if you can see from that email, that snapshot was for the entire length of my term in office.
In a statement to Fox 45 News, the county executive's office says all of the emails searched are public records and are subject to Freedom of Information Act requests.
Inflation ticking up slightly, but economists are still celebrating. I'm Atral Nashar to explain, coming up.
And we're keeping track of showers moving across the state and areas of heavy rain. I'll let you know when the rain finally ends and what you can expect for the weekend in my full forecast.
New Labor Department data shows consumer inflation rose slightly in July. 2% annual inflation is considered normal, but the current rate now sits at 3.2%. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar joins us live from Capitol Hill with a look at this and where it's going. Atra.
Hey, good morning, Mary. Good evening, Mary. This was one of the most hotly anticipated inflation reports in a long time, and that's because we are at such an important juncture in this inflation cycle that is really starting to show whether the United States can ease down out of this cycle of high prices without going into a crash landing. July was the hottest month ever recorded.
Your total is...
And it turns out prices were a bit hotter too. Consumer inflation last month breaking a year-long streak of decline, which economists expected because it's being compared to an abnormally low reading from last July.
Looking at what's happening right now, this month and this past quarter, inflation has continued to cool.
Some items that are getting cheaper, used cars and trucks, and airfare. More expensive car insurance contributing to a monthly inflation increase of 0.2%. But the biggest contributor, again, is the cost of housing.
Even though there is a robust apartment construction for home purchase, inventory level is simply not there.
National Association of Realtors chief economist Lawrence Yoon expects inflation for rent to keep cooling this year as inventory comes on the market.
The latest figure showing only 8% gain. And in the upcoming months, I think it's going to go down to about 5% gain based on some of the trend data that I am looking at.
It's relief that may not feel like it.
Inflation is coming down, but that doesn't mean that the price level is coming down.
ZipRecruiter's Julia Pollack says were it not for the pandemic inflation surge, prices across the board would now be about 7% higher than they were before COVID. Instead, they're more than 17% higher.
That is not going to move away. Prices are going to be permanently higher than they were before the pandemic. They'll grow slowly, but from a much higher base.
Now, that, of course, is tough math for households, but the alternative is arguably worse. Deflation, which is when prices overall decline, is often associated with a dramatic slowdown in the economy, like a recession. And it's actually what we're starting to see emerge in China and can be a lot harder and take a lot longer to reverse than inflation.
And Atra, this report looks at national trends, but we know inflation isn't the same everywhere. How do prices in Baltimore compare to the rest of the nation?
Yeah, well, when I saw this, so Wallet Hub does a study. They analyze inflation in every metro area in the United States, and I saw Baltimore on this list because it is some good news I knew I had to share with you. Baltimore, the Towson, Columbia area actually has a pretty significantly lower inflation rate than the national average. So your inflation rate, so prices last month compared to July of 22, are 2.8% higher. So that's much closer to the normal Federal Reserve target rate of 2%. Now, of course, inflation falling doesn't equate necessarily to prices falling, but it is certainly encouraging to see in your area. It's not quite as bad as the national average, but also, too, this is when you shop in person, you shop in stores. I don't know about you, but I do a lot of online shopping, and you might not necessarily see that same rate on all outlets.
Absolutely. Hey, we'll take the good news any way we can find it. Atra El-Nashar in D.C. for us tonight. Thank you.
Thanks.
Right now, you're taking a look over Baltimore and over Towson, where we've had showers moving across the state. You can see that on the HD radar. It's all a part of our latest weather maker. Behind that weather maker, much better for the weekend, but still many parts of the state dealing with those showers. We've got clusters of heavy rain along parts of the eastern shore and even in southern Maryland, but a lot of this is quickly moving to the east. We are looking at mostly dry conditions tonight. 79 and mostly cloudy over Baltimore. It's a little breezy with winds out of the west. Across the rest of the state, temperatures in the 70s and the 80s, some lower numbers behind that rain. Now we have that chance for a few early showers, at least for the next few hours, but it looks mostly dry and much hotter for the rest of the weekend. We'll have our next chance for showers and storms on Monday, followed by temperatures pretty close to average. Notice as we head into the night, we start to clear. Then tomorrow morning, we start up with more clouds, waking up to temperatures pretty mild. Then by the afternoon, those highs reach the upper 80s and the low 90s. You'll notice a big rise in temperatures, but fortunately, it's not going to be too humid. We'll have the chance for a few spotty showers overnight, But starting off on Saturday morning, it looks mostly dry. Into the afternoon, highs reach the low to mid 90s, and it will be more humid. Make sure that you are practicing heat safety. We're also talking the 90s on Sunday, keeping things very warm. We have that chance for a few showers and storms on Monday, and then we stay mostly dry through the middle of the week. 67 for the low with clearing skies. Then tomorrow, highs around 90. It'll be hot and sunny, but not too humid, so good for spending time outside. And we're getting closer to the start of the school year, just 17 days for Baltimore City and Baltimore County, along with Harford, Howard, and Anne Arundel counties, and then Carroll, Cecil, and Kent counties around 25 days. So we're counting down to the bus stop forecast. Coming up, I'll have a look at what to expect for the weekend and into next week in the exclusive 10-day forecast.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
NOAA has updated this year's hurricane forecast. They're now calling for an above normal season with 6 to 11 hurricanes, 2 to 5 of them being major hurricanes. A storm brought strong winds and lightning to Alabama's Logan Martin Lake, while a viewer captured this Arkansas lightning strike against a purple sky. And relentless heat and a lack of rain is scorching the tops of bushes near El Paso, Texas.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Instagram.
The FBI reporting a rise in reports of sexual assaults on planes. How agents in Seattle are working with attorneys to prosecute these cases. In tonight's Assignment America, the FBI is reporting an alarming rise in reports of sexual abuse and misconduct on flights. In 2023 alone, more than 62 reports have been filed compared to 38 in 2014. Denise Whitaker from our Sinclair sister station in Seattle has the story.
No one should touch you while you are traveling. And if it happens, you can tell us. We want you to tell us.
90 people reported being sexually assaulted on a plane last year. That number is up to 62 so far this year.
Too often, they prey on young people.
The FBI here in Seattle tells me that 1 in 5 sexual assaults in flight are committed against children.
Sexual assault on airplanes is a federal crime.
Cases headed to trial in Western Washington charge men with sexually assaulting 4 teenagers and 1 adult, all while in flight.
We've seen our use of blankets when someone's sleeping and someone else is too close to them.
These are just some of the circumstances attorneys see in these cases. When sentencing 43-year-old Babak Rezapour, the judge called the assault an evil act, an awful, horrible nightmare situation. Rezapour was convicted of sexually assaulting a 20-year-old woman during a long flight that landed at SeaTac International Airport. She made notes on her phone in flight and immediately reported it to the flight crew. Passengers seated near her who witnessed part or all of the assault also stepped forward and testified at trial. Rezapour was sentenced to 2 years in federal prison.
Bottom line, no, you're not alone. People are going to believe you. People are going to support you.
It's not easy to talk about a sexual assault, but the FBI tells me it's imperative to stop predators. And victims' advocates assure me they'll be there to listen and help. At SeaTac International Airport, Denise Whitaker.
We are getting ready for a mostly dry but hot weekend. Temperatures around 90 tomorrow with plenty of sunshine, then 93 and a little more humid on Saturday, 93 again on Sunday. We have our next weather maker on Monday, leading to afternoon showers and storms. Temperatures will be around 89 again on Tuesday, then temperatures in the upper 80s and close to average on Wednesday. We return to the 90s on Thursday, and after that, our temperatures stay above average in the upper 80s and the low 90s into next weekend. Mary?
Jasmine, thank you. Well, finally tonight, the Maryland Zoo is celebrating World Lion Day. The zoo says lions like their lion Hassan and Zuri represent strength, courage, and beauty. The zoo also calling attention to their conservation efforts when it comes to protecting lions and habitats. Well, that's all for Fox 45 News at 6 Family Feuds. Next, we'll see you back here tonight at 10 on the CW Baltimore.